to keep myself very much restricted to just 5 or 7 minutes, because I have to leave in a short while. I'd like to cut across the issues that you raised at the beginning and share with you some comments on the developments of both private and state-owned sectors in the defense and security industries in these countries, as well as the markets. First and foremost, and it had already been mentioned during the panel, that until 2013, the country's defense and securities sector had been oriented towards exports. The country had almost not developing its own armed forces, national guard, etc., and exporting the stockpiles. Also, we looked as if we were a major exporter in the arms markets. We were in fact very flawed inside the defense and industrial sector, in as much as we were exporting the stockpiles and not investing much in producing new military equipment. Now in 2016 we are actually facing a very steep decline in our exports, and we are losing place as a leading global exporter. So we actually still have chances to regain that place in certain sectors of the market. The eruption of the Russian-Ukrainian war had also stimulated the reappearance of a strong domestic buyer, so to say. The state agencies, the National Guard, the Ministry of Defense, and the State Border Guards, and a few other agencies that are buying from the military and industrial sector here, but as it had already been mentioned, the budgets are very limited. That's number one. But the other structural issue is that the budgets are also scattered, meaning that there is no single purchaser in that market that will define how to best apply the state resources towards the local military industry. And we may see that different samples of equipment, for example, the armored personnel carriers, are now being bought by different branches of the defense and security sector in this country. The second issue is, of course, the access towards that state buyer. We have to fight with the intransparent procurement practices. I must say that the state agencies had done a lot with the help of the society, with the help of non-governmental organizations, with the help of NATO and other experts. And the state is not any longer losing that much as it used to several years ago in various intransparent schemes linked to the procurement. One more topic that I wanted to raise is the necessity to nourish and build two wings in the military-industrial sector in this country. We've heard of a very strong state-owned wing, which has been developed under the Ukроборонпром aegis. It's not the only part of the state-owned landscape in the military-industrial sector, because there are 80+ enterprises owned by the Ministry of Defense, some 13 huge companies, some of them are huge companies owned by the state's cosmic or air space agency, and some companies also owned by the state border guards and the Ministry of Interior. But this country's military industrial sector is also privately owned, and especially in non-lethal equipments, also in the lethal one, there are huge outlays made by the Ministry of Defense, by the National Guard, to purchase food, purchase medicine, and textiles, etc. And this is all being supplied by the privately, or mostly supplied by the privately owned companies. Those companies, after 2 years of the military conflict with the Russian Federation, had become so strong that we are now pushing them towards foreign markets, towards markets in the European Union and NATO countries. It's of paramount importance to make those companies produce under the NATO standards, so that they become competitive not only on a comparatively small Ukrainian market, but they become also competitive on the markets of the European Union and the NATO countries, and the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement that Ukraine had signed and which had entered into effect already allows Ukrainian companies access to the markets of the military procurement in those countries. One more. So just to finish on that, I'm a strong proponent of the mixed military-industrial sector in this country. One last remark I wanted to make is on the extremely high importance of the military-industrial cooperation, which has to follow, and we have to be blunt on that, which has to follow the geopolitical cooperation, and that had already been addressed by some of my predecessors. Ukraine, in that sense, is experiencing very hard times because we are changing our geopolitical orientation, and most of our military-industrial cooperation had been until 2013 connected with the Russia and other countries of its military satellites. 90%, just to give you an example, 90% of the production of Yuzhmash, one of the leading enterprises in the aerospace sector, were exported to the Russian Federation. Figures in excess of 50% of experts apply to Motor Sich, for example, the producer of the engines. And now we have to follow the new geostrategical model, which is evolving, which, as it had been rightly mentioned, is a kind of a regional alliance, which may have some links to NATO, but would also have to develop a lot on its own. So we have to look towards enhanced cooperation with Poland, Romania, and the good thing about that cooperation is that we have joint military threats, so to say. On one hand, and on the other hand, those countries do have already budgets much higher than Ukraine to spend on military-industrial producers. Just to give a good example, Poland had announced a budget of 100 million euro annually to build its military space capacities. Ukraine has lots of technologies that may be used in that program, but is very scarce of cash. So that's a great basis to cooperate with Polish Space Agency as an example. Thank you so much.